Greetings everyone, it's me, The Bee, and welcome back to another review. So, John Carpenter's The Prince of Darkness. The Prince of Darkness is 1/3 of John Carpenter's self-proclaimed Apocalypse trilogy. You have The Thing that deals with an alien virus assimilating the world, and then you have In the Mouth of Madness, which deals with collective insanity as well as timely intervention by interdimensional beings, and then you have quite literally the most biblical out of all three, The Prince of Darkness. What's really fascinating about this movie right off the bat, it is not your conventional demonic possession film. Even though there are demonic forces at work in the film, it doesn't necessarily inform, the existence of the MacGuffin. The MacGuffin being a vial of green fluid, which is found in a church. Now, even though I do not proclaim myself an expert in quantum physics, which is what this movie is kind of about when it comes to the green stuff, it is one of Carpenter's more cerebral films. Yes, it still has violence and gore and a lot of tension in this film, but there is a sense of a higher power of intellectualism, to use a very basic term here. What I really like about the film is that it doesn't specify that this green stuff is the devil. Now, they make mention that, this entity that this stuff is supposed to give birth to is meant to be somewhat of the Antichrist, but Carpenter himself has gone on the record by saying the green fluid in the vial is not the devil. It's something else entirely. And the greatest thing is, you don't really know. The film does not make a point of spoon-feeding you this sort of information. Now, around this, you definitely have the Carpenter stuff. You have, moments of extreme, tension. Like, this film is very, I'm not going to say it's slow, but it has a very deliberate build-up for the first half of the film. You see the introduction to the film, which basically sets up the tone, and the tone of this film, the apocalypse is going to happen, okay? There's really no avoiding it. And you have this sense of permeating, abysmal sort of, feeling going on throughout the entire film. And then you have, the introduction to the characters. Now, these are the characters that you are going to follow through the film, so obviously you need to have some sort of connection to them. And what I find really interesting, the lead character, played by Jameson Price, I believe his name is, he's very sort of atypical of the leading man in John Carpenter's films. In fact, he's actually more of a romantic, whereas his love interest, Catherine, she has way more traits when it comes to Carpenter heroes. Like, she's very cynical, she has the humor, and she has a stronger sense of daring to her. Now, everyone in this film has a scientific background, okay? So when they all come together to study this green vial of liquid, they're not approaching it from, a common person's standpoint. They're all coming together and using their collective intelligence to work together and try to find out what this thing is and where it comes from. Another really great thing about this film is how it combines faith and science, but rather than have them at odds with each other, Carpenter has these two forces, these two powerful, potent forces coming together to fight for the greater good. And I don't think I've seen many films that have these two factions put aside their differences in order to come together, when it comes to fighting for their best interests. It's very refreshing to see. This film does not make it a point to insult your intelligence. Like I said before, it doesn't. It finds its audience smart enough to come to its own conclusions. Well, if not conclusions, then figure out their own theory. Now, in saying that, when it comes to the more supernatural aspects of this movie, it is some of the best examples of it I've seen. With this, one of them being this collective of homeless people who come together and surround the church where this green vial is kept. And it is basically, assault on Precinct 13 in a sense. But these homeless people don't necessarily break into the church, but they act as a guard. They act as a guard to the church because they know they can feel something is happening. And then you have all the bugs and night crawlers crawling over their skin. Whatever this vial of green stuff is, it has tremendous influence. It is able to affect something as big as a man to something as small as a parasite. And like I said before, there is no doubt that the end of days is coming in this film. Everything is dark, it is oppressive, and you know something terrible is going to occur, but you don't really know the nature of which it does. And when these moments of horror happen, it is startling. There is some wonderful makeup in this film, and I would be loath to give it away, especially to you folks out there who have just gotten to the groove of Carpenter and you want to see you want to see a movie that surprises you. The Prince of Darkness is a surprising movie, and I feel it actually has a couple of things in common with The Exorcist, namely of which being, the whole sort of demonic angle of it. Even though The Exorcist has a far more definitive approach when it comes to the demonic element to the film, it's not the devil that they're dealing with, it's another entity. And even with all these great minds coming together and working so hard, they're unable to figure out what this thing is. And not knowing what your enemy is by far way scarier than this creature coming out and saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm Satan. Whoa, I'm going to ruin your day." There is only so much the human mind can comprehend, and that is what this film, it is one of the focuses that this film has. One of my favourite moments is definitely the repetitive visual of a video projection coming from the future. I'm kind of getting goosebumps talking about this, but it turns up through several intervals in the movie, and every single time it happens, a new element appears. And at the end of when the broadcast is finally completed, you have this mysterious figure standing in the doorway. Now, it's completely in silhouette, you don't see any details, and the only other thing that sort of, goes through this projection, through this broadcast, if you will, is this ominous warning. It's a message that is very, very foreboding. It's not exactly the sort of thing that you would want to hear on a good day. I'm just telling you that. But yeah, this entire film is definitely built up on the tension and the atmosphere. And even though there are some pretty bloody and gory moments, it doesn't necessarily fall back on these things. And that's what really good horror does. Well, not just horror, but suspense in general. When Carpenter is able to call forth the ability to ratchet up the tension, it's like catgut, a catgut violin. You stretch it, you stretch it, you stretch it, and then you let it go. And it's searing. It goes right into you, and it's something that you just cannot forget. The lead actors in this movie are pretty good. Once again, the leading man I mentioned, Jameson Price, he's very introverted. Rather introspective. He's very thoughtful, but as time goes on, he does take on a more leading role. And then you have the character played by Donald Pleasence, Father Loomis. Yes, Father Loomis. Now, I'm not sure as to whether or not he is supposed to be the brother to Dr. Loomis from Halloween, but it's an interesting sense of continuity there. And Victor Wong, who plays his friend, the professor, those two work very well together. And Victor Wong turned up in Big Trouble in Little China, a couple of years earlier. And it was really good to see these veteran actors work together and, just converse on the screen. You really get a sense of camaraderie between them. These guys have known each other for quite some time, and they trust each other. The other actors in the film, yeah, they do well. They do well with the actors they have, and I don't feel that their roles are cheapened. I didn't feel that there is sort of a gratuity when it came to their portrayals. Everyone does a pretty respectable job. And then you have the awesome prolonged cameo by Alice Cooper as like basically the leader of the bunch of homeless people who are outside. Like he gets some really great moments, and if you know Alice Cooper, he has a very distinctive look about him. there is no doubt that you could not miss this man in a crowd. It's a very interesting film. I may not necessarily say that it is his finest, but it is certainly one of his most thoughtful movies. Once again, coming back to the idea that, you know, science and religion working together to like try to find out what this thing is, it's a very interesting concept. And yes, quite frankly, if I had to choose between watching The Exorcist, which, by the way, I am not trying to compare these two movies, by the way. The Exorcist and The Prince of Darkness are two very different movies. But when it comes to, like, steadily building tension and, you know, really going in depth into the particulars of the film and the plot, I think I would be more prone to watch Prince of Darkness than I would The Exorcist. But that is just my own personal opinion. I love both movies, and quite frankly, like I said, there is no comparison between the two. They're very different. So yes, I give Prince of Darkness a 3.5 out of 5. Also, I really got to mention that the score in this movie. Once again, this is John Carpenter writing and scoring the music, and it really has that dark and sense that this is the weight of the world on these people's shoulders. Carpenter is so good when it comes to using his artistry with his films. This film was made after Big Trouble in Little China, a really, really terrible experience for him, and he was disillusioned by the system, but when he went back to his roots and went a little more independent, that's when he found his spark, once again, and it really does show in this film. So, thank you very much for listening to me ramble, guys, and as usual, I shall see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.